This is Eddie Johnson with Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. We're at the ABA meeting in Lexington, Kentucky, and we're enjoying the fellowship of Brother Jerry Bailey and Brother Terry Woodside. Brother Jerry Bailey is the pastor of the Sending Church of Brother Woodside and CPR Ministries. And I want to ask you, Brother Bailey, talk to us a little bit about being the Sending Church, what that means, and how you all came to decide we want to be the Sending Church, Brother Woodside.
Well, first of all, as a sponsoring church, there's a lot of responsibility in that. We do it a little bit differently at our church, and every church probably does it differently. But first thing that our church wanted to do is to be sure that we took care of Brother Woodside. That I feel like that's our responsibility. Now, a lot of churches come along beside that and help us to be able to do that. But with Brother Woodside's ministry, we set up things a little bit differently because he has to have his money very quickly because he's out on the road living 365 days a year on the road. So we went through some things that are a little bit differently. Where money comes into our church, it's put into his bank account that day. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that we did as a church. We decided as a church we want to get this money over to him as quickly as possible. The second thing we do is we feel a great responsibility as a sending church that we need to have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. And so I took it to our missions committee. I said, now, if we're going to be a sponsoring church, we're not going to be a sponsoring church in name only. We're going to be a sponsoring church because we want to go down with the ship if the ship's going down. Mm-hmm. And so our church, I left it with our missions committee, trying to teach them, let's talk about this, let's discuss this. I remember the meeting just like it was yesterday. And they said, I introduced Faith Promise to our church. And so, we believe this, and we discussed a lot of different things. But what they came up with is 60% of our Faith Promise goes to him. 20.2% of our regular missions, we do 15% of everything comes in. 20.2% of that goes to him. So as a church, we have got a great responsibility. Now, there's some other things that we're working on to be able to help. But money's not everything, but it is important.
That's right.
And another thing that I thought of as a pastor is I try to have him in front of our church as much as possible because the relationship that we have together, it's a partnership. And so there's a lot of times I spend a lot of time in our pulpit mentioning Brother Terry, what's going on with him. Our people want to know where he's at, and we cultivate that relationship over a period of time. There's been some times that's lacked a little bit on my part, but most of the time we have that kind of relationship with them. As far as the church understanding, most of our ABA churches love and understand missionaries.
That's right.
But do they totally understand what they do? What I've found out, they don't. Yeah. And so I take a Sunday night and I share with our people, not only about Brother Terry, but every Sunday night I read a letter from a missionary. And most of the times I'll grab something with him and I'll share it with him. So our people have told me they understand more about missions than they ever have. And we see more missionaries preach. We've never seen a missionary. We don't know what they look like. And I thought, that's so sad. Yeah. Because we're missionary Baptists, but they don't know what a missionary is. So I found myself constantly having to be teaching and discipling and to be pouring myself out to the people to let them know what truly a missionary. My responsibility for him is to have a great relationship with him. I should be able to tell him and say anything to him and him be able to understand where I'm coming from. Mm-hmm. And that takes a period of time. Now, with me and him, it's very easy because we really like each other. We do, don't we? We really care about each other. And I think that's a big part of what a missionary is caring about their missionary. There's oftentimes I'll ask him, how's your offerings? you know, not because I want to know,
Right.
you know, have you got everything you need? Do you need this? Do you need that? And he does good about sharing with me what he needs. And it's not all about money, but we have to be sure that we take care of his needs. Now, the spiritual part is something very important as well. I'm still his pastor. And the wonderful thing about that is iron sharpens iron. There's things that he knows that I don't know. And one of the things I learned very quickly about this ministry is that I let him, as an evangelist, come in and teach our people. There's sometimes he comes in and teaches them stuff that's pretty tough for them to hear. Mm-hmm. And after he leaves, I have to go in and kind of get them to understand what he was talking about. Right. But that's good. And I give him free reign in our church because he's a church member. And that's very important for our people to learn that. And, you know, when it comes to serving the Lord, iron sharpeneth iron. And I'm thankful for him because he's forgot some things, more things than some things I'll know. But I appreciate the ministry that he's doing out there and how God's using him to be able to bring this ministry, help other ministries. Because I've always I've always loved pastors. I've always wanted to fellowship and be a part of the work. And through this ministry, we're able to do that.
Brother Woodside, how would you describe the relationship you have with your sending church and your sending church pastor?
My sending church, we love them. We love them dearly. You know, every church has the ups and downs, the things that happens, and that's just normal. But we love them dearly, and they've been there for us. There's some folks in our church that have just bent over backwards to be a blessing and a help to Miss Lisa and I when we're there and when we're not there. You know, sometimes we get texts. You know, we live in a society today, a world today with this electronic stuff that we're doing here even today. We didn't have, you know, a few years ago, you know, just to send a simple text to a preacher, I'm praying for you today. So we get that. That's wonderful. As far as my pastor, you know, I don't know where to even begin. We have a wonderful relationship, and I love him, and I'm not afraid to say that. He's a dear friend. We've been through a lot together through the years, and God has knit our hearts closer together than ever by us being under his ministry as a pastor and us being our ministry there under Northcrest. And so it's exciting. One of the things that I thought he would share, and he didn't, so I want to say this. You know, with technology, my calendar for CPR Ministries is linked to his phone. Mm-hmm. So when I add a meeting, he knows right away when I add something to the calendar. And then he, at any time, knows where I'm at. So if someone says, hey, where's Brother Woodside? Well, let me look, you know. And so he's able to know where I'm at, pray for me. Oh, I see Brother Terry's going into a meeting. I need to be praying for him. And so our relationship's wonderful because of a lot of things, but those little things kind of help keep us closer and in touch together.
Brother Bailey, give us an example of what you would consider to be one of the biggest challenges as a sponsoring pastor and sponsoring church, and one of the biggest blessings as a sponsoring pastor and sponsoring church.
Communication has got to be the biggest thing. Got to be, you know, be able to communicate with him, to know I've got so much going on as a pastor. I have to understand that I've got to know what's going on with him too. And that communication, and we do a really good job about communicating, but it's a constant thing that you have to, you know, it really does change the way you look at ministry when I look at it a little bit, maybe a little bit differently. I know God's got the responsibility of that ministry, but God has given that responsibility over to a pastor, and I take that very seriously. And like I said earlier, I call all the pastors, and I took that upon myself, but that's where the electronics came in. Mm-hmm. And but God has used that to help me to be able to learn about a whole lot of other ministries out there.
Sure.
I think sometimes we put ourselves into a small box, and we don't need to be in a small box, especially as an ABA. We need to understand we need to be outside that box.
I think the ABA exists to make the box as big as possible.
Yeah, it does. And so we appreciate it. Now, as far as the blessing, there are so many things that I could say about the blessings. Just to be able to see a pastor get some help. That I've had pastors to call me and say, "Brother Terry's a blessing to me." I haven't had one single pastor to say one negative thing about him and his ministry. And I mean, if they did, I would understand that, you know. But just to see, but I can't tell you how many pastors have said that he called and checked on me, or he loved on me, or I was having this problem. And I'll be honest with you, we've experienced it. All preachers have problems. And I guess the biggest blessing is the relationship that we're able to have together, and then we expand that relationship to other pastors. And he knows a whole lot more pastors than I do. When I come to these things, I get to see the fruits.
Right.
And that's such a blessing. And to see churches that were going to close their doors, and now they've got a pastor, and we went up and we ordained the pastor and done ordination, and he was sitting on the council, and to see all those things, it's just, that's the fruit of the ministry.
I kind of think that's what being a missionary Baptist is about.
It's
working
what it's all
together.
about.
That's right.
And you can't get discouraged, and we all do, but you can't get discouraged when you see God moving and working in people's lives.
Amen.
And it's a blessing.
I just want to say one thing too. I appreciate my pastor so much, and he's never been micromanaging, and I don't want to give that impression.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he does is out of care and compassion. He doesn't sit back and try to tell me where to go. He gives me the freedom to follow the Lord in this ministry.
Amen.
And then he's probably my biggest cheerleader.
Mm.
You know, he's back there going, "Yeah, that's right. Go help that one. That's good. That's a good idea. Well, let me pray with you about this," you know. And so that's the wonderful part about having a pastor that's really in tune with the ministry that you're in.
Sounds like you guys have struck a balance
Yes.
between not being too much involved and being just provoking enough
Right.
Yeah.
as a sponsoring pastor and working together with a missionary.
Amen.
It is. That's the key. The key to it is simply this: God needs to speak to His heart about who He needs to go help. I'm to be an encouragement and a blessing and a help. And there's been cases I've had to get involved, and He's had to step back out of the way. And He's wise enough to understand that, and I'm wise enough to understand sometimes I've got to step out of the way. So it's a very different ministry, and we work together like two peas in a pod, and we like each other, and we enjoy each other, and we have that sweet fellowship.
Brethren, thank you so much for sharing this with us today, and I really hope that these things will be a blessing to people, maybe help some guys that are trying to get started in mission work.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.